When a solar eclipse crosses a region covered in solar panels, thousands of power sources begin losing sunlight together. Solar generation falls. But homes, factories, and trains keep consuming electricity. And suddenly, the grid has a gap to fill. So why don't the lights go out? Because the grid is constantly doing something most of us never see, keeping electricity production and consumption almost perfectly balanced. On one side are power stations, solar farms, wind turbines, batteries, and other sources feeding electricity into the system. On the other are homes, factories, trains, offices, and everything else taking electricity out. Electricity grids are remarkably tolerant of celestial drama. They are considerably less tolerant of arithmetic being wrong. And the grid has a kind of heartbeat that tells us when those two sides stop matching. Frequency. Across much of Europe, that rhythm sits around 50 Hertz. If consumption becomes greater than generation, frequency tends to fall. If generation becomes greater than consumption, frequency tends to rise. So, when a shadow crosses a solar-powered region, operators aren't simply watching panels get darker. They're watching whether the entire electrical system stays balanced. But an eclipse has one enormous advantage over many other grid disturbances. You can see it coming. Astronomers can calculate the path and timing far in advance. Grid operators can combine that with weather forecasts and solar production models to estimate when output will fall, where the effect will be strongest, and roughly how large it could become. But the moon's position is predictable. The solar electricity underneath it is not perfectly predictable because weather keeps changing. The moon keeps appointments. Clouds do not. So operators prepare for a range of possible outcomes rather than trusting one perfect number. A useful example came with the 12th of August 2026 solar eclipse. Ahead of it, European grid operators estimated that clear skies could produce a solar generation reduction of up to 9.7 gigawatts across Europe. They prepared control rooms, increased solar forecasting, coordinated across the interconnected system, and preserved additional operational flexibility. Not because an eclipse is uniquely dangerous, but because it creates a very large version of a problem grids solve every day. When generation falls, some power sources can increase their output. Batteries can respond extremely quickly. Some electricity demand can also be adjusted, and interconnected regions can exchange power when network conditions allow. Different grids use different mixtures of these tools, but the principle is simple. If one side of the balance moves, something else has to move with it. And some responses don't wait for a human. Frequency response systems can react automatically when the electrical rhythm starts moving away from its target. That buys time while the wider system adjusts. The grid forecasts, keeps flexibility available, measures what actually happens, and corrects the difference. An eclipse does not darken an entire continent at once. The shadow travels. Different regions lose different amounts of solar generation at different times, and eventually sunlight returns as the shadow moves away. That means operators may also have to manage how quickly solar generation comes back. The exact shape depends on the time of day, weather, location, and how much solar generation is online. But grids face the same underlying challenge when renewable output changes, when a generator unexpectedly disconnects, or when electricity demand changes quickly. The specific cause changes. The balancing problem does not. A solar eclipse looks dramatic because the sky itself appears to switch off. But for the electricity grid, darkness isn't really the dangerous part. Surprise is. And the better the grid can predict change, measure imbalance, and respond quickly, the less dramatic that darkness becomes.